In my family, we're just big. So it's not like because I eat or something. We're just big on the big side. And so I don't know what you want me to do. That's how we are in my family. We eat a lot. We gain weight. We are big. So besides, Africans generally on the big side. So what's your problem? You know? The doctor looks at me and says, but you are not tall. Your height, your body frame, your skeletal frame cannot take the weight of your body. Cannot bear your body weight. I don't eat. I don't eat really. I don't eat. It's just sometimes I just take half cup of yogurt with muesli, maybe one cup of muesli, and that's all for the day. Or maybe I'll just eat like cucumber and an apple. That's all. No, let me tell you. Oh, you are scaring the law out of your body. Okay? You're scaring the law out of your body. Hello everyone. This is Chit Chat with Dorcas, the African in Ecuador. And like I said in the last video, we're talking about the cost of weight loss. So I came very, very prepared today. We'll be talking about the knowledge you need to know about your weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance, everything weight. So the first question, I'll be going through my notes facing sideways. The first question is, why we gain weight? Okay, so that will be the first question we'll answer today. There are many, many factors, and I'm not going to go into the medical jargons or scientific. Listen, I'm going to try to be concise as possible, but I have broken it down into. I'll have to put that on. So, genetics. What is genetics? It's basically the study of our genes and our traits and how they transmit information from one generation to another. Basically, they tell a lot about our health, our physical appearances, even our personalities. And in regards to weight gain, we have people who are predisposed because of this genetics or are predisposed to gain weight because their insulin resistance syndromes impairs their body to regulate blood glucose, thereby um, making them gain weight. Some other people cannot produce enough leptin so that they don't feel full or satiated while eating on time. And that makes them gain weight because, of course, they take in a lot of energy or calories than what their body requires. Also, genes can affect how they respond to inflammation, how fatty cells or fat is deposited in the cells, the quantity of fat that remains in the body, in the bloodstream rather. So that is a little I can say on genetics because your genes does not really limit you to lose weight. It predisposes you. It makes it easier if you have some of these genetic variabilities to gain weight, but it is not a limiting factor in losing weight. Most researchers will tell you that if genetics are your problem, then you're easily helped by medication and medical intervention. That's what the word I was looking for. There are a lot of medical intervention that can make it easier for you to lose weight and to maintain that weight loss. So that said about genetics. If you are like me, you're curious, you want to know more about it, I'll leave a link below on how our genes affect our weight gain. Okay, let's move on to SDOH, which is your social determinant of health. Under SDOH, we have your income level, we have the crime rate of where you live, we have accessibility to good food, and we have discrimination. If you have access to healthy food, which usually are high in nutrients and low in calories, there is a very likely chance that you will not gain weight. And the reverse is the case. If you are in a crime, in a high crime neighborhood, there is the likelihood that you will not want to leave the house, which will mean now that you will not likely go out to exercise. You may not likely go out to shop for healthy food sources, maybe because of the distance from your house to where you can have access to that food, and you are more likely to order in your food, which most times we know food that we order online are not usually low calories. They're very rich foods, very high in calories. And so that would have influenced your probability to gain weight, and how fast or how slow you gain that weight will depend on how intense the crime level is in your neighborhood. And if you have a high income, then you know that you can afford to knock off the first three, which is okay, the first two rather, which is what? Yeah, the first three, which is discrimination, accessibility to food, and crime. So if you have a high income, you earn well, you're likely to live in a very good neighborhood, a crime-free neighborhood. You have the means to afford healthy food, to access it if it's not near your vicinity, and you're most likely not to be discriminated. So how does discrimination affect our weight gain? First of all, discrimination, simply put, is the maltreatment of other people because you are prejudiced towards those people. You don't know them, but you have a disposition, a negative disposition to people of certain age, of certain race, or a certain gender. And so you treat them unfairly. Let's start from the home, okay? Where I come from, I have seen kids being denied certain kinds of food, especially things like meat, eggs, and because we believe that if you give children such rich foods, they'll grow up to still. Meanwhile, kids actually are the ones who need more protein because they're in their developmental stages. One, so imagine that child grows and now he can afford to buy his own food. What do you think that person would do? They would go for those things that they were denied as children. I've seen women also being discriminated against in many settings where because men do the hard work, so they eat more portion, or where mothers give our fathers the biggest portion of meat because he's the man of the house, whereas the woman who probably needs more protein and nutrients is made to sacrifice for the good of the family, or put yourself in a situation where you're in a poor, you come from a certain part of town and you go to another district of town, so the have-nots go to the haves, and you go to shop maybe in a rich district, and maybe because of your shabby appearance, people begin to look at you one way and another, or in a not so pleasant way, and you have to go there to buy what you need. Say, for example, you need to go there to buy meat or something that will add value to your health, or you even need to go there to see a doctor. But because people are prejudiced rather, and they begin to look at you in a kind of funny way, it's really not comfortable for you to go to such places. And the stress that puts on our emotions, on our minds, scientists tell us that it does not just stop at the time we stop to experience that discrimination, it goes beyond that. And so you'll find that because of that stress, people come back home and they begin to crave foods that are usually calorie high. They begin to crave things like, say, for example, maybe fried foods or sugary drinks or alcoholic beverages just to cope with the stress of the day. And so that is how discrimination can affect us. It's very, very broad. Sometimes if you are in an interracial neighborhood, you see that amongst the community members where, like in previous times, say for example, in previous times where one color could not go to shop, where other people of other colors could go, or where certain social class people cannot afford to go there. Okay, so um, and it's a vicious cycle in the sense that that emotion, that maltreatment makes people grow with resentment. It makes people going back into crime, which we spoke about, and because we want to have a higher source of income to stop being discriminated against. So I don't know if you can see the vicious cycle I'm trying to make here. So you're discriminated upon, and then you turn to crime because you're trying to get a higher income, and the you know what I'm saying. So, but like I said earlier on, if you flipped the coin and you had a higher source of income, you would avoid all those things. Let's talk about medical conditions. One of the most common medical conditions that makes women gain weight and gain weight very rapidly is because polycystic ovarian syndrome. Such people produce excessive androgens, and those androgens, which are male hormones, cause the body to cause the body to crave for calorie high rich foods and increase appetite for those kind of foods. So you have an increased appetite, but not actually for healthy food, if not for high calorie food. And it causes that excess calorie, which is converted to fat. It makes that fat to be deposited on the abdominal organs. So you find that most people usually have the fat more around the tummy area. Okay, and then people with Cushing syndrome also gain weight quickly. People with heart failure, diabetic patients, people who suffer from insomnia, or let's be more precise, a lot of times we're not really suffering from insomnia. The thing is that we have very poor sleeping habits. And what do I mean by poor sleeping habits? Poor sleeping habit is when you do not have a regular time to go to bed. You don't sleep up to 6 to 8 hours. You don't go to bed at the same time. That habit affects your cortisol level. That cortisol level will affect your stress level. Actually, that is a stress hormone. You want it to a certain level, but you don't want it to be chronically stressed. So for most people, it's not that we suffer insomnia, it is that our sleeping habits are poor. We do not respect our sleep time. We don't go to bed on time. We don't wake up on time. We don't go to bed at the same time regularly. Having said that, we can also have weight gain because of anxiety, because of depression. A mental illness that is very well known is schizophrenia. People with schizophrenia tend to be overweight. Another disease that usually causes weight gain is hypothyroidism or an underactive thyroid, cardiac failure, and also when you stop smoking, there is a tendency to gain weight. So those are the few medical conditions that can make you gain weight in general that I wanted to bring to your attention. Next, let's talk about medications that can cause you to gain weight. So for women, generally, let's start with, because I'm a woman, I'll talk about women. First of all, is birth control. I'm talking about combined oral contraceptives. I'm talking about migraine, medication for diabetes, antidepressants, antipsychotic medication, mood stabilizers, medication for migraine, antihistamines, anticonvulsants, beta blockers, all those. But to mention a few, those are the medications that can affect um, weight gain. So, you know, and then you can see a doctor or a dietitian, and maybe they can help you to mitigate the circumstances as your case may be. Now, the last one on my list today is environmental factors. And I kept it for last because if you remember, we started with genetics. Now, environmental factors is actually the opposite of your genetics. So, whereas genetics has to do with what is going on internally, environmental factors are external. So, they come from without. And I will start with childhood training. A lot of us come from homes where we were taught to eat high carb foods, sweet foods. So we were raised with a lot of snacks, maybe working class mothers that just left us with snacks, fast food. If you're from West Africa, people who were raised on buns and soda drinks, But I've noticed if you look at today, especially on social media, you can find that kids who are raised on sugar foods tend to grow up loving sweet foods. It is just how we are trained. Your taste palate, your taste buds are accustomed to sweet foods or certain foods, and you grow up eating those kind of food. Now, on the other hand, on the flip side, if you were raised eating healthy, and I'm talking about from infancy with vegetables and fruits, such kids usually don't have a problem eating vegetables and eating healthy. So there is a dependence right from childhood. That is the first factor from the house, how you were raised. Secondly, we grow up and we continue with that lifestyle where we take too many sugary drinks or too many high calorie drinks. And some people think because it's liquid, it doesn't matter. No, if you don't take alcohol, then you take soda drinks. So they call them sodas, right? Or gaseous drinks. Where I come from, is minerals. So things like beer. Beer is very, very high in calorie compared to wine and other things, but it's still high. And on top of that, then you eat, two, we have people who go for, who like to eat out. And why does that affect weight gain? Is because a lot of times where you go out to eat, you are not sure of the quality of ingredients that goes into your food. So these people, these restaurants, food chains are out to make money. Definitely, they are going to make your sauces, your dips, and things like that to be very high in sugar, to be very high in fat, to be very high in um, preservatives, just to enhance the flavor. And research has shown that a lot of these ingredients in these sauces that are not homemade or made from scratch, because of the preservatives and those artificial sweeteners and flavor or colorants, it's usually very addictive. And so, those you gain weight if you feed out or if you eat out more frequently. Another external factor is eating food in large portions. So I don't need to tell you that. Many a times that happens, like when you go for barbecues or you go for outing and there's just plates of food, especially if you are a social creature and you go to so many parties, there's always food around, or you host guests a lot. Most of this food that we eat at such places, at such events, is usually, you know, your burgers, your pastas, your hot dogs, and all those things. And they are not dense in nutrients, so we tend to eat a lot of them. That would be one reason why you gain weight. The third environmental factor would be your lack of movement. Thanks to today's lifestyle, most of us don't really move. We either drive or take public transport. We don't move. We're sedentary. And so if you're eating, even if you're not eating large portions or too many sugar food, if you do not work your body out, any energy that or calories that your body takes in, if you don't expend it, is converted to fat and then you gain weight. So we lead sedentary lives. The majority of us, we do not exercise. That is why we gain weight. It's basically simple, right? I don't need to be saying all this, or do I? On the sad side, though, one of the external factors that affects, one of the environmental factors that causes us to gain weight is our exposure to things like pesticides. And it is sad because a lot of it is present in our cleaning agents at home, from your detergent to some chemicals that is used to make our body care products, from our shampoos to creams to moisturizers to lotions, plastic containers. Today many homes have microwaves, and we microwave our food in plastic containers. Those chemicals in those things usually bind to the fatty cells of our bodies. And when they're in our bodies, when we don't detox our bodies often, or we continue over time, they have a tendency to also attract more chemicals that bind to fatty tissues and fatty cells, which some research say that it is one of the predisposing factors to things like cancer, because they are not excreted from the body, they just bind to our fatty cells. So that may be one of the reasons why you gain weight. So you have to be aware of how you store your food. Do you use plastic containers a lot? You know, do you live in industrial areas? A lot of us today live in the cities, and we live very close to factories that emit a lot of these toxic chemicals that we inhale, that are detrimental to our health and contribute also to our weight gain. So that is all for today. It's a mouthful, it's a lot. If you've made it to the end of the video, I have to say a big thank you for bearing with me. I'm not a scientist per se, I'm not a nurse, I'm just trying to share my knowledge from my own weight loss journey. And next week, we will be talking about what can you do to lose weight and to keep weight off sustainably. Thank you. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.